Hey everyone, I'm back with another build for Path of Exile 3.7. This time it's a Spectral Shield Throw build, which I've really wanted to do for the past few leagues, and this league I feel like is the best that the skill can do. Um, I really recommend it. It's another Deadeye. My last build was a Deadeye as well, but the chains are insane with this build. I really enjoy it. I feel like Captain America. That was the main reason I wanted to do this build. Uh, and yeah, here's some gameplay of tier 15 map I did, and it goes pretty smooth. It's a really good mapper. It can struggle against bosses a little bit, but I'll get more into the build later on. And yeah, stay tuned for the build description later on, and then after that I'll show more gameplay. Thanks. So here's the cold conversion spectral shield throw build. Um, I have 6,500 life, which is pretty good, as you guys can see, and I'm primarily cold with all of it thanks to the conversion from the Winter Spirit, uh, the Watcher's Eye I have, which is not necessary, and the conversion on the gloves. If you guys are not running Watcher's Eye, I really recommend getting Harem Sorrow. Uh, it's a lot more DPS for the build. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna go. First, I should mention that the most important part of the build, and it's actually a jewel, it's called Divide and Conquer. So what Divide and Conquer does is it makes Spectral Shield Throw chain 4 additional times. So it makes it bounce off each enemy. It'll bounce off 4 different enemies, which is really good for this build, and without using chain support. If you're using chain support, then you get 6, which is a little more fun, which I primarily use for mapping. Um, every time it ricochets off an enemy, it shoots its projectiles, but they're 75% less projectiles. So with the build I have so far, I shoot 5 projectiles every time it bounces out, which is pretty good still. And that's thanks to the helmet enchant. I recommend buying a helmet enchant and then crafting. Uh, how I crafted this one to get the nearby enemies have -9 cold res is you use a uh, frigid fossil right here, where it gives more cold modifiers, so you can get the nearby enemies have minus cold res, which is very helpful. And then I used a what's it called? Pristine fossil for more life modifiers. So this is how I ended up with this. I just threw in a 2-socket resonator, and I did it about 4 or 5 times, and then I ended up getting this one, which was really awesome. But yeah, so I'm gonna go over the items in the build, then I will go over the passive tree, and yeah. So what I chose for the weapon, since you're not doing any actual attacking with your main hand, Spectral Shield Throw only goes off your shield, is I went for Eeyore's Mirage, which I saw Race QT actually using, and that gave me a good idea because I was going with the Princess at first, and because the Princess gives you additional fizzes extra cold damage, which is super helpful, but I like this because as you guys can read, attacks fire in addition, attacks chain in additional time when in main hand. That's really good. Um, so it makes Spectral Shield Throw chain in additional time. And the way Spectral Shield Throw works is when you throw it and you have pierce, it won't pierce the enemy. It will bounce off the enemies, and the shards are actually the ones that pierce. So you don't have to worry about accidentally getting pierced or purposely getting pierced because you think you'd go through. Um, I do have some pierce on this, as you can see on the helmet enchant actually. Um, so when you hit an enemy, it pierces them. And then it'll chain for each additional enemy. If you add fork to Spectral Shield Throw, the projectile will fork first and then chain. So it will create two shields and then it'll start the chain afterwards. So you can get a lot more damage off that because if you hit both spreading projectiles, it'll both of them will chain for a lot more damage. But I prefer chain because it's more consistent, especially in indoor maps. Outdoor maps, some like burial chambers and stuff, I tend to use fork. Um, for a shield, I just bought one with the most armor I could find. That's all I did. I just searched up 2000 armor, and then I bought this one for like 25 chaos. Uh, I'm gonna continue with this build, so I'm probably gonna try to buy one with 2500 or more armor, and maybe a good stat other than armor. But we'll see. We'll see. This is a good shield. I recommend trying to get close to 2000. It gives you a lot of damage because for every 2 to 3 armor you have, yeah, there we go. For every 15 armor you get 2 to 3 physical damage, and then we're converting that to cold with our all of our conversions. Um so I went over both weapons, the helmet. I'll go over the body armor next. I bought a 6 link, not uncrafted, for about 20, 25 chaos. It's pretty cheap. Probably even cheaper now because I did it a few weeks ago because I've been working on this build for a while. And then I actually essence crafted this. I just hit it a few times with an essence, and then I ended up, right? I did an essence. It was essence or fossil. I was hitting it a few times, and I ended up getting this. And this is good enough for me. I just wanted some good life. If you are to craft it yourself and you're willing to spend more money, use a bloodstained fossil and a pristine fossil. The bloodstained fossil can give you maim on top of this, and adding maim will um, act your spectral shield throw as a 7 link because it'll have maim, and maim will add more physical, which is converted, so it'll help out. Um, so yeah, that's what I would do. That's what I might be doing, but for now we're good with this. This is really helpful. It gives a lot of enough health and resistance to max out my res. Um, we'll go top down. For the amulet, I strictly just looked for one with Fizz as extra cold. You can get it for like 5 chaos. It's really cheap. Um, if I'm if you were to upgrade it, look for higher rules of Fizz's extra chaos, and also look for um, increased elemental damage with attack skills, like how you do, like I have on my rings, because it actually helps out with a lot of damage. And look for life, obviously, and res as you need it. For the rings, both of them, I looked for rings with elemental damages with attack skills because that scales with the um, it scales with the shield throw really well, and then it looks for some life and res. You can look for added physical to attacks, but that's only a minor increase in DPS. I wouldn't say look for that. Try for elemental damage with attacks first, and then see where you get from there. Um, for the gloves, I recently got these. I switched off Herm Sorrow finally, because I had the Watcher's Eye for a little while, and I've been trying to see if I wanted to craft them, and I've been pretty unlucky to get the craft to physical to cold conversion. Um, but yeah, uh, I just bought these recently for a chaos, and then I added life. Pretty good. Belt. Go with a Nomad. Nomad's really good. You can also just go with a rare belt with rare abyss belt if you want for extra life. Just look for life and res if you're gonna use the Nomad. The Nomad is really good because it gives you elemental res because it's really easy to get the required amount of strength because we're in the duelist area a lot. And then projectile damage, we're a ranger, so we end up getting a lot of dex as well. So we hit those caps really easily, and it adds a lot to our spectral shield throw. For the boots, just look for movement speed, and res and health, basically. Nothing much there. Pretty usual. For the flasks, pretty standard. I went with a healing one, um, granite and jade for just defensive buffs, quicksilver as usual, and then I went with a taste of hate because it adds a lot of extra damage because I'm getting 20% damage, or no, 18% physical damage is extra cold, and that's a lot of DPS because we have a lot of physical already from the shield. Um, but yeah, next is the links. So Spectral Shield Throw. Um, the main links are Energy Leech because it gives a good amount. I'm still leveling these. I just qualityed them, by the way, so these numbers will be improved. Um, but the main thing is supported skills deal 32% more damage while leeching Energy Shield. Um, that's the main thing because we do have Blood Rage, so we're constantly draining our Energy Shield, so we will constantly get that damage buff. Hypothermia helps out with chilling and adds extra damage because it chills when we hit and then we ricochet a lot, so it adds a lot of extra damage. Vicious Projectiles adds physical and then we convert it, so that really helps as well. And it's a more physical projectile damage because you can't add melee physical or anything because it's a shield throw. So we got to look for projectile. Elemental damage with attacks, um, really helpful. Flat, huge damage boost, one of the staples. And then the last link is either cold penetration, chain support, or fork. These two are for mapping, and this is for when you want a boss fight or you're struggling a little bit at maps. But yeah, you just try them out, see what you prefer. I generally use chain in maps because especially when there's like we're in a like inside cave small area, the chain will link itself to the next enemy pretty fast, whereas Fork will just hit the wall and stop. So it gets a little annoying sometimes, but it's generally just a feel thing. I swap off both a lot, so it's really just a feel thing. Next would be our Shield Charge. Shield Charge is our main movement skill. Linked it with Fortify, faster attacks, and Endurance Charge. Pretty self-explanatory. Since we're using Shield Charge, I did add a Leap Slam to just jump over walls. It has no links. I didn't really have enough space to link it with faster attacks because I did want Endurance Charge gain over here, just something to help. You just slam yourself a couple of times against the boss and you get Endurance Charges. Um, I guess we'll go over passives. Leap Slam, Hatred. Hatred is our main damage boost. You cannot get away with not using it. Also procs the Watcher's Eye cold conversion, so very mandatory. Blood Rage adds Leech, which is helpful, not a ton, but enough to make it pretty smooth. Adds attack speed to make shield throwing really smooth and shield charging really smooth. Uh, Frenzy Charge gain, which is super nice, and just overall, and it procs our Energy Leech. Ancestral Protector. I always forget to use it, but you use this for bosses. You just put it down next to you to add attack speed, basically. But yeah, Flesh and Stone. I have been switching in and out, but I've decided to go with it um, because it adds a lot of extra protection, and you can maim in Blood Stance, which is good for bossing. Um, but I was trying Herald of Ice for a while, but Herald of Ice was kind of unnecessary because the shield send procs sends projectiles, and so the Herald doesn't really help as much as it would in other builds, but you can use it if you like. I like the pop, so sometimes I use it for mapping. Next is precision. I keep it level 1, maybe even level 2, but you make sure it doesn't cost much mana because we're already down about 75%, I believe. Yeah, we're down 75%. So try to keep it kind of low enough for extra accuracy. Um, and then Frost Bomb I use on bosses for the debuff or big mobs, or just when I'm doing Monolith, I place it a little bit before and try to get a little bit of debuff. But you're not using it for the damage, you're strictly using it for the debuff. So you don't have to level this at all. It doesn't have to be level 20, it doesn't have to be qualityed. It's just using it for the cool exposure. And last but not least, we have our fall skills. So I sometimes forget to put it on, but I have oh wait, not last. Um, the two Vol skills, Grace and Molten Shell, with increased duration, just because Molten Shell because we have a lot of armor, so it gives us a lot of extra defenses, and Grace because it gives us extra evasion when we need it. Chances to dodge. Um, and then her cast when damage taken setup is increased duration with Molten Shell and Enfeeble. Again, Molten Shell, this this makes it so we don't have to cast it, so when we take damage, it automatically procs. And then Enfeeble, if enemies are close, we curse them, and it makes it so they're less likely to one-shot us. Fun enough. And yeah, that's it for the gems. And next we'll go over the I'll go over Extended really quick because it's quick. Go with tailwinds first. You don't have to. I generally do because it gives movement speed when using a skill and plus 1,000 evasion, so that's pretty good early game. Um, Especially movement speed because movement speed helps you get through the game faster. Far shot, don't need that. I mean, projectile speed is cool, but this is kind of a dead travel node. We're mainly using it to get the ricochet because chain one more time and it does 10% more damage for each remaining chain. That's a slight damage boost, but we chain additional time, which is awesome. And we chain a lot, especially if we have chain support. Because if we have chain support on, look, we chain 8 times. That's 80% damage for, and then it goes down. But that's extra damage. Awesome. And then fast and deadly because we are um, attack speed and projectile damage, and then the accuracy actually helps us a decent amount because we do need some accuracy. We are not going resolute technique. We could, but we're instead going with the elemental overload because it adds DPS. I don't know what that was. Um, the elemental overload gives us uh, extra damage if we don't crit. So we travel here. It's kind of long, but there's not too many other things to get, in my opinion, because we are shield and projectile based. We don't get a crazy amount of things. I mean, we do get, thanks to Iron Grip, we do get physical damage from strength applies to projectile as well as melee, so that helps a little bit with damage. But generally, travel here, grab the shield nodes. You don't have to grab both of or the flash freeze, but I did just because it's two travel nodes and I kind of wanted it projectile speed. The gameplay is more smooth with more projectile speed. Uh, and then you go down here point blank because a lot of the time we're in their face and just throwing it adds extra damage. Um, Grab the projectile damage and the shield, and then as I would be leveling, I would probably grab the health. Health helps a lot. More health, more health. Soul of Steel is really helpful. It adds 1 to all maximum res, so now we have 76 resistance flat across. Um, it these travel nodes give 5, so we get 10 to all res, and then increased armor. We do have a decent amount of armor, almost 10,000 armor, so we get 57 fizz reduction, which is very nice. Travel, grab a lot of health, travel. Grab some health and mana. If you have mana issues, it is important to grab this. Maybe even one additional if you're really having that much issues, but you shouldn't be by late game. I grabbed this one for mana as well because of, I mean, increased mana helps a little bit, but mostly the flask charges gained in duration because you want to have your Taste of Hate on as long as possible. But then yeah, travel over here, grab some health, and then grab the additional damage pen. Originally, old part of the build, I went with over here with the damage pen and the elemental damage. You can go with these um, if you would like for extra damage if you notice you're struggling, but you really shouldn't with this build. It's really tanky, you can do a lot, and we already have a lot of pen from the helmet, from the Vault Corruption on this, and um, just and Divine Favor. We do have a decent amount of resistance penetration, but feel free to grab these if you want. I grab them and then take them off, and then I grab them, and then I actually took them off to grab these two and spec into more health. Just grab the extra little tail node on most of these, just to grab more health. But you guys can do whatever you want. This is a really fun build. I really recommend running this build if you have the chance to. Um, And yeah, I look forward to making this build even more OP and min-maxing it later on. Um, but yeah, thank you guys very much. There's going to be one more uh, gameplay mapping of a tier 15 something I was doing. Feel free to watch that if you guys want to see more gameplay. And thanks. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and leave a like down the video and leave me a comment asking any questions. I'll be more than happy to help any of you guys with this build or any other builds I've done or even the build you're trying to do. I have a decent amount of experience in this game where I can help you guys out now. All right. Thanks very much. See ya.